You began your voice career at a young age, Sean. Did you start in this profession? Was voice acting your first professional vocation, or did you transfer from more traditional acting?
You know, the fun thing is that I don't really know if I can call it a transfer, even though it wasn't a start as a voice actor to begin with. So I had been engaged in traditional acting up through my early years. You know, my parents enrolled me in summer programs at the local community college that we had. You know, I took part in plays in elementary and middle school. You know, I was engaged in all of that, but I wouldn't say it was something that I felt was a calling. I just enjoyed playing a part. It's hard to describe. Like, we're talking about child brains, so there wasn't a whole lot of logic going on behind there. It was, oh, you know, this is fun for me, and I'm not bad at it, and I don't get bullied when I do this, so it's automatically something that I like. But I didn't understand. Voice acting hit me like a truck, to be perfectly honest. It came to me in the middle of my junior year of high school by pure happenstance. It was a random discovery that happened while I was browsing online at like 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning out of boredom. And I found this video that showed it was Troy Baker in a booth as he was recording for an upcoming anime episode. And it was the first time that I'd seen someone in a booth talking at the same time that the character they were recording for was talking, because they had like a dual split screen thing going on. And as soon as I saw that, my brain was like, I have no idea what this is, but this looks like the coolest thing in the world, and I want in on it. And so that was really the start. Like, it was a little bit, you know, acting, a little bit of acting, and then, oh, you better prepare for college. And my preparations for college had nothing to do with acting whatsoever. Like, it wasn't like, oh, I want to be a theater major when I go to college. It just wasn't in the cards. Then I discovered voice acting, and you know, like that meme image of like the car hard pivoting off of the opposite side of the road to go off of the exit ramp. Yeah. And then on the sign, so like, on the left side of the sign, this is like mirrored on the webcam, so it's not going to make sense to most people. On the left side, it's okay. We'll just pretend it's UK driving rules. On the left side of the sign, it was literally anything else, and then on the right side of the sign, it was this thing you just found called voice acting, and I'm just off to the side going over there. And from there, it was just a constant involvement. I loved the concept. I liked the idea of, you know, literally becoming this other character, not just playing one on stage, but visually being represented by that character. And just, you know, all the opportunities that came with that, whether you were a creature or a human being or an animal creature or anything, it just literally anything. And that passion is kind of what fueled me. And I just stuck with it. And the deeper I got into it, the more reasons I found to love it, the more entertaining I found it, the more chances I had to entertain others. And it's really just been the guiding force for me ever since. I think I've been doing it since 2007. So almost 15 years at this point.
Do you get physical in the voice booth? I get a sense that there's an awful lot of energy inside that mortal frame.
Oh, I'm very much a method actor. You know, not everyone is going to be very physical with their motions when they're acting, especially because for most of us, we're going to be standing in front of the microphone. So we can't be doing this all the time. Otherwise, they're not going to be able to use those takes. But I'm a poser. And I don't mean that in like the negative type of, oh, he's such a poser. I mean, like, if a character has like a stance that they take that I'm clearly seeing, I'm going to like adopt that pose. Or, you know, the big one that I think of is Phoenix Wright. You know, who can do a Phoenix Wright impression without pointing their finger out when they're doing like his? It's iconic. I remember, you know, this is going to be extremely relevant considering what you got playing in the background. One of my earliest studio gigs was for East 8 Memories of Salsetta. And there was this character that I played who was described as like a self-proclaimed genius who like fancies himself a bookworm on the lore of the island or whatever it is. So I brought in my fresh copy, literally less than 2 weeks old, of Hyrule Historia. and I held it open in one of my hands, like I was posing like Robin from Fire Emblem, you know, the guy who's always got his spell book open, and I would hold it and kind of adopt this pose, like, you know, I've learned everything there is to know from this book that I have and you don't, so I'm smart and you're dumb, ha 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 ha, die. So, you know, that's the kind of energy that I'll bring into the session. I don't go so far as like cosplaying the character that I'm going to be voicing, which is a big no-no, but I get about as professionally close to that as you can.
Might pop a button, or, you know, just sort of adjust a jacket just a little bit at the very least.
I might stab myself a couple times if I need to be, you know, like severely wounded.
Just grow a beak, learn archery, it's fine. A voice actor like yourself has to take vocal health very seriously. In fact, you mentioned a recent. I'll rephrase that sentence for the tape, because in the edit, that's going to be a nightmare if I say recent.
Keep it in. Keep it in. I want you to keep it in. I'm just sitting here
all
going.
Of this stays in. So in fact,
just the whole time, the whole 15 seconds.
You mentioned in a recent Twitch stream that you have had to cancel streams in the past to take care of your voice. So what do you do to keep your voice healthy? What's your routine, as it were? And have you had issues with vocal health in the past? I know I've absolutely scuppered my cords a few times, and I've had to just like take a few days of not speaking.
So what you've been seeing me doing intermittently throughout this interview is one of the first and possibly most important things that I have to be doing regularly, which is staying hydrated. And that's something that needs to be happening before, during, and after the session. Just this constant check-in and refueling of making sure the throat is lubricated. At its very basic level, you know, your throat is, you make sound by creating friction. You know, you've got your the flaps that are in your throat, you've got your vocal cords, your muscles, and you're literally constricting and causing vibrations at different frequencies that changes, you know, the pitch, or, you know, how high or how low it's going, how loud it is. And obviously with anything, enough friction is going to cause soreness, or, you know, it's going to be wear and tear over time. So staying hydrated is how you minimize the damage that's being caused by that friction. And at the very end of the day, you know, the reason why the Twitch streams sometimes have to get canceled is the same as an interview, the same as a session, the same as a Twitch stream that I'm hosting. I'm going to be talking for, you know, an amount of time. Now, for an interview, it may only be for an hour, but for a Twitch stream, it could be 3, 4, 5 hours. You know, one time when I did a release night stream for Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, I streamed for 19 hours and 42 minutes.
That's a good point, actually. When you hit certain times of the year and your body begins to betray anything you schedule, how do you find ways around that?
You know, it's dependent on knowing yourself. You know, sometimes if I wake up, I'm feeling a little stuffy, I can tell there's a little congestion in my nose, I might take a Zyrtec or something like that, or an allergy pill ahead of time to make sure that by the time the session's in full swing, that my nose is starting to clear itself out. But then, like you mentioned as part of the question, sorry, it's going to keep happening. Sometimes I just end up having to cancel ahead of time for my own sake. You know, the reason for that is, for me, the Twitch streams have always been more of a bonus. It was something that I got into as a result of the pandemic. It's something that I mostly continue because it's been providing a community service. In fact, I don't make money off of my Twitch channel. Like, yes, I am partnered. I do get paid off of the subscriptions at this point, but I can tell you right now that the amount I make on Twitch, very between mod payments and everything else, very quickly gets outpaced by what I spend. So I'm running it at a net negative most months, but I don't care because my voiceover career is lucrative enough that I'm able to do something like this. But what that means is, you know, when there are cases where I look at my schedule and I'm like, okay, I am double booked on this Monday, and then Tuesday morning right after that is the first session of a brand new gig with a brand new client. There's that part of me that goes from personal experience. If you do these 2 sessions on Monday and your throat's feeling a little worn down, and then you go and stream for 4 hours on top of that, you might knock yourself out of commission right before this Tuesday session, and you're gonna probably leave a bad first impression. So the streams are almost always the first way to go, or the first thing to go when it comes to having to pace myself. And again, this is one of the other important parts of voiceover, knowing your limits and knowing when you need to say, hey, I need time off. Or like when a client asks, you know, when can you have this done by? Well, maybe the earliest I can have it done by is Wednesday, but I may still say, hey, can I have until Friday just in case? Because you never know what's going to happen. Most jobs in America, although I'm not proud of this fact, most jobs in America, you can still work even if you're sick as a dog. Voice acting, thankfully, is not one of them. So you have to make wise choices regarding that. And my community's been really understanding about that. You know, I told everyone up front, hey, I'm going to be as consistent with this as possible, but I need you guys to understand at the end of the day, the voiceover career pays me more consistently and a lot better than this does. And it's also the career I want to be doing until I die. So if push comes to shove, stream's not as important, and they've been super cool with it.
It's always lovely when you have a community that like not only gets it, but is so very much supportive of you that they're like,
right,
dude, you do whatever you need to do. Like we will be here. If you go live and we get the notification, we'll watch. If you don't, it's cool,
right.
No judgment.
I suppose it helps that I'm not in it for the money either, because like I literally tell them, hey, I don't need your subscriptions. Please don't spend money on me unless you feel inclined to, because I'm not going to personally guarantee X number of streams a month. So when you're already like not beholden to that idea of, you know, I have an audience that I need to cater to because they're the ones paying me, then it takes a lot of the burden off. Because if I'm actively telling them, you know, I don't need your money, don't worry about subscribing to me if you don't want to, then there's that obligation is not there to earn it per se. You know, I'm still going to give the best performance that I can. I'm going to try and entertain them, but it's not a requirement, if that makes sense.
Yeah. This is me in night mode.
And there you go.
That's, you know, we're gonna have a chill time. That's what you're coming in for.
Hi everyone, welcome to the stream. This is all I'm going to do for the next 5 hours because I don't want to raise my voice any more than is necessary. Sit tight, enjoy yourselves, deal with it.
Just lifting the occasional Pringle. Just like...
Fritos, my friend. Fritos.
Frito-Lays, why not? When you get a script, do you hear the voice the first time as you're reading it, or do you like to experiment to find a character?
You know, it's both sides of the gamut, to be honest. For me, most often what will happen is when I get auditions, I always try to do 2 takes of a character. I always try to do 2 takes. And what I will also try to do is, for the first take, I won't even read what the specs say for the character description. Like maybe I'll check what age they are just in case it might affect how high or low pitch I approach for them. But I will not look at anything else. I'll just look at the image if one is provided and go, what does this sound like to me? Or what do they look like they sound like to me? And I'll record a take like that. And then for the second take, I will actually read the copy and give something closer to what the client is asking for. And sometimes that has worked out for me. One big example, playing off of Breath of the Wild, was Teba. Teba was a character that I was given a chance to read for in the middle of the recording process. I had originally been cast as only the Great Deku Tree. Then I was offered Revali a couple sessions in due to some shifting around that was happening. And then while we were recording for Revali, they said, hey, before we move on, there's this third character that we need to cast. We wanted to give you first dibs because they're also a member of the Rito race. Wanted to see if you could do something for us and see if you can do a voice that sounds vocally distinct from the other 2 you've done. And they showed me the sample scene with him. And after fanboying, my brain went, I know exactly what he sounds like. I literally said, you guys, just go ahead and run it. I have an idea. Like I can feel what he sounds like. And they were like, okay, you know, go ahead, show us. And I did the voice and they went, yep. All right, cool. Just make sure it doesn't fall too far out of that. But that works for us. Which now if we can have a moment and reflect, imagine being me and standing in that booth telling Nintendo, don't worry, I got this, when they show you one of their personal characters for the first time, just saying, I don't need you to tell me what to do for this character. I have an idea. Having the audacity to say that, doing that, and then having the big N go, like, what? Like, that's so surreal. It's so, but that's where it worked out. You look like you're about to say something.
You and Charles Martinet basically are the only 2 who've gone like, wait a minute, why don't I try something? let me
Right. And of course it was a lot kinder than that, but it's just so surreal to like have that moment of realization, like your headcanon became the official voice for the character. Like that's every fan fiction writer's dream. But I don't want to keep you too long, but are you willing to hear another story about how like recording based on your impressions of the character worked out?
Bring it on.
So I forget the name of the project. I need to try and remember it. But there was this war game. It was a mobile game that was war real-time strategy based. And they were looking for the character was called like the EMP. It was like literally this character that operates as like a DJ, or he operates his robot like a DJ. And that just sounded so ridiculous to me. I was like, there's no way they could take this seriously. So I'm gonna play this like this your typical Eurovision electro pop Swedish DJ. So my whole audition, without looking at the copy of the specs, I was like, "Yeah, let's get ready to bomb them off the battlefield. Let's do this, yeah." Like I was just like super crazy. Like literally one of the lines like, "Get ready to pump it up, yeah," just stuff like that. Yeah. Well, as it turns out, they were expecting it to be played seriously because it was a real-time war-based strategy game. And what I was told by the director was when I first listened to this, I was like, that's really funny, but it's not what we were looking for. But my sound engineer, who was with me, started cracking up and said, listen, after 40 hours of listening to grizzled war veterans going, let's destroy them, bombing the base, attacking this. He's like, that was the funniest damn thing I've heard this month. We have to put this in. We have to put this in. And so, against the whims of fate, because what I did was so off spec for what they wanted for that game, because it was so unexpected, they had to have it. And I booked the role because of that.
Taking chances. Sometimes it's worth it. Just diving in.
So the main message, this is much shorter. The main message I was getting to is one of the lessons that they'll teach you is, at some point you have to remind yourself to just have fun with it. Because if you're having fun with what you're doing for a role, it's going to sound more genuine and more authentic than if you're just doing what you think the client wants. And I think that's where a lot of bookings come from, is not when I try to match what they're asking for, but when I give what's fitting for the character, but I'm also having fun with.
There can be challenges too when it comes to either figuring out a voice or what have you. What I want to know is, what's the most challenging character for you to voice? And similarly, on the same wavelength, you obviously have inhabited characters that have previously existed in different languages and, franchise characters. Mm-hmm. Is that tough as well, to sort of jump into someone else's shoes?
Oh, it's so fitting that you bring this up now, and it's unfortunate that I can't give a lot of details about it, but there is a project that I am in the process of recording for right now that I would absolutely say is my most challenging that I've had to do to date. And I'm trying to think of how vague I can be about this. You mentioned filling shoes, and this is definitely a role or a project where it's like, there are so many iconic examples that already exist of something like this. Mm-hmm. And obviously I booked the role. Obviously, I was chosen for this despite all the other people with equally competitive, equally valid takes that also auditioned, some of who have actually played this type of character before. So on some level, the director has faith in me and believes that I'm the best fit for this role. But there's just that sense in the back of your head, like, but there's already so many good examples. Like, what I'm doing doesn't sound like that. People are going to listen to this and be like, why did they do this? Like, why did they go with this person? So that's just something that I've got to work through. But I absolutely say, more than anything else, this role counts as the most challenging, because while I'm in the middle of trying to make sure I give, a grounded, realistic, authentic performance, I'm constantly battling off that little brain demon that's going, this doesn't fit the character. You don't know what you're doing. You sound like you're trying to be this instead of actually being this. And it's been really, really tough. But in terms of the character that's been the hardest to flesh out, would actually be Revali. Revali is the only character in recent memory that has made me cry, for both good and bad reasons. Because I came in with this understanding of what I thought Revali's personality was like. It didn't quite match up with what Nintendo wanted, so we had to start over from scratch and rebuild him back up. And I got so stressed out and so worried about if I was going to be able to make those changes and give him the performance that they were asking for, while making it sound good before I ended up getting recast, that I broke down crying on the phone over with my mentor during a break, because I was just so worried about it. I loved him so much. I loved his design. I loved that I was being trusted with this beautiful bird bastard, pardon my French. And we worked it out, but that definitely was like a cemented memory of just how committed I was to that role and how much it stressed me out because of that commitment.
It paid off, though. It paid off. You made it. You're there. You're a fan favorite. So, like, dude, mission accomplished. Spinning out of Revali, and I wonder if this is the answer to this question too, who has been your favorite character to play and why?
So this I kind of give a cop-out answer to, because part of how I keep myself invested in voice acting, and more importantly, how I keep myself from coasting, is to find value in everything that I do. And I tell people I look for one of three things, and it can be multiple, but at least one of three things. Either a new milestone that I accomplished in my career, a challenge that I overcame, or something that I knew I was going to knock out of the park, and it was a chance for me to just showcase my strengths and what I basically just said. Just say, hey, I'm in my element. There's no way I can screw this up. Let me show you what I can do. And so, in Breath of the Wild, there's an example across my three characters of each of those. The Teba was the new milestone with having, my headcanon voice for a character become the official voice. Great Deku Tree was the challenge that I overcame, which was, how does someone with a pipsqueak voice like mine manage to go so low and deep and wise for the Great Deku Tree? And then Revali was... Oh, I'm sorry. I got that wrong. Teba was the strength that I could knock it out of the ballpark. Revali was the Revali was the challenge that I overcame, and Great Deku Tree was the new milestone. But each of them provided something for me to cherish and be grateful for. Other characters like Guido Mista and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, that was one of the first cases that I voiced a recurring lead character that doesn't die by the end of the series. Subaru technically is also a recurring lead character, but he does also die. So I don't know if that matches all the specs of that requirement. And it just, that process goes on, each time that I voice a character. For example, last year, it's almost been a year since it came out. Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles Remastered came out. And that was a niche game that a lot of people were really hyped for, but it didn't really have a big market, Like it was a big deal when it was announced. It was a big deal when it came out. And then like a month later, if even, it was just gone. Like the interest had moved on to something else. But it will always be extremely important to me, because that was one of the three games that I grew up on during my childhood. Like that was a game that I knew front and back of my hand at all times from start to finish. And I get to play three roles in that, one of whom you can use as a party member, and one of whom is like the major NPC of the game. Like they follow your character throughout the entire story of the game. And now I'm their official English voice. So for me, that was like a full circle moment where even if most people don't care about this game already, to be a permanent part of something that I grew up on, literally, not like, oh, you're in Breath of the Wild, which is part of the Zelda franchise. It's you are part of this game that at one point you were playing nonstop. That's very, very special to me. So I just take that same approach to every role that I do, and I try to find something that I can take with me, either as a new experience or as a point of pride, and I use that to continue fueling my passion going forward.
Keep knocking it out of the park, Sean.
Thank you.
Although, I will have to have a word with you about the NDA for the upcoming thing. If I slip you like a 10, will you tell me at least? Or...
for a 10... I'll just block you.
Oh.
No, you're fine. No, but in all seriousness, I know that you said it in jest, but I'll just reiterate for people out there. NDAs are not to be broken, and it is the single easiest way to guarantee that you never get to work with that client or probably any of their partner clients ever again. So I take them very seriously, and I don't talk about stuff until I'm given permission. I just play it safe.
I'm just going to be, you do realize that when like the next couple of years come around, I'm going to be refreshing your IMDb just to be like, right, when is it, what is it, come on, I've got to figure this one out. It's a legacy character, it has to be. What is it?